Welcome back to Season 2 of the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Our mission is to share with you what we have learned from our experience and the experience of others to help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate the Discount Property Investor way. Make sure you never miss an episode and download the Discount Property Investor app in Google Play or iTunes today. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. This is your host, David Dodge. Mike Slane is out in the field today, my co-host. However, I am joined by a good friend and another fellow real estate investor, Don Costa from the Flip Talk podcast. How are we doing, Don?
I'm good, man. We've been talking about doing this for a while and we haven't been able to connect, so I'm glad we finally did.
We sure have, man. We've talked about doing this. Actually, we met originally here in St. Louis, my home market. Don is from Fresno, if you're not familiar with Don. We met here in St. Louis at a real estate workshop for those who wanted to expand their business even more. So, Don, good catching up with you, man. How are things?
Things are fantastic. We're having a great year. I can't complain at all. 2018 has been really, really good to me.
That's awesome. Well, today I really want to focus on systems, Don. When I first met you, me and Mike, what do you think that was, about a year and a half ago?
About a year. I think it was about this time last year, maybe May last year.
Okay,
yeah,
so about a year ago.
Yep.
Yeah. When I first met you, you were flipping roughly rehabbing, not flipping, but rehabbing is what you were focused on, about 100 houses a year. And I totally was blown away by that. And then you kind of said something to me that made me feel good about myself, but not so much on the same level. But at that time, Mike and myself, we were doing, more than 10 wholesales a year, between 10 and 15 wholesales. I'm sorry, a year, a month. So if you look at that on the scale of a year, we were doing over 100 as well, but not full flips. It's a big difference, man. That's a big difference. And we're still doing 10 to 15 wholesales every single month. However, now we've kind of started to do a little bit more. Now we have about 20 rentals as a company, about 50 between my partners and my company and myself. And we're also doing anywhere from 2 to 4 rehabs at a time, but we're still basically focusing the majority of our efforts on wholesaling. And then obviously as a wholesaler, all the viewers and listeners will know from listening to my podcast, and I'm sure yours as well, Don, that wholesaling is kind of a means to an end for us, and at least I would think for you too. It's a great way to do marketing, get good deals in the door. And then, of course, you can cherry pick those deals and keep the best for yourself and, wholesale off the rest of those. Right. So, awesome.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, Don, it's great to have you. I talk a lot, so cut me off at any time. It's really no big deal. You want to offend me. I can go all day here. But when we had first met, you surprised me and impressed me by the fact that you guys were doing 100 rehabs. And I'm just trying to think of the manpower and the brain power. And I'm just thinking about it hurts my head. So tell me about some of the systems you have in place about your business to be able to get to that level. And then, of course, you just recently told me that you changed it, but let's talk about just those things first.
So, yeah, we did 122 last year. 3 of them were wholesales. The rest were rehabs. A couple of wholesales mixed in there. Wholesale, if you're not doing wholesale strategy, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a game changer. That's where you close on the property and then turn around and put it on the MLS and resell it. So, but the majority of that 122 were rehabs.
You said 3 wholesales?
3 wholesales.
Wow.
In 2017. And then the hotels, which was just a small handful, I think we did like 10 or something like that. And the rest were rehabs. So, really, before I get into kind of some of the systems we use, I want to frame systems in a manner that I think will help people really understand them, because I think some people feel like that they need to buy a, like a certain system that everybody uses. And I will say that all of our businesses are different. And so systems really, for the most part, they're going to fit your organization and maybe not somebody else's. And so you got to look at systems in a manner of they're like the boundaries that you set in your organization for which people will perform within. Okay. So if you start looking at it that way, it becomes easier. No one's going to take a truckload of systems and back it up to your driveway and just dump them in your driveway. and you're going to have all the systems for your business.
Right.
You're a wholesaler, wholesaling company. I'm a rehabber. Our systems, our structures will be different. So you got to just, like I said, take them and frame them in a manner that's just real easy to understand. They are the boundaries that you set. So an example of a system, for instance, is how we pay our contractors. We have our contractors bill us on Friday for the work that they're going to complete the following Friday. And then our gal comes in on Monday. She cuts all the checks. She makes reports on what we're paying out for that week. She sends those reports to our lenders. Our lenders will give us our reimbursement, our draw for the rehab by Wednesday or Thursday. Friday morning, project manager confirms that the work is done. We give the contractor a check. That's a system, right? Now, from the outside looking in, that doesn't look like a system, but that habit, that process controls so many things. One is we force our contractor to set a goal, right? We force him to set a goal for what he's going to complete.
I love
Two
that.
is, yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
he's got a goal. He's never ahead of us on a project. He's only paid for the work he's done. And that kind of sets that precedent. Two is, with Cass coming in on Monday and cutting all the checks, we know, first of all, the checks are cut, they're done, that work is done, it's past us, but we know where we stand on the project at the beginning of the week. We know what our obligations are for all of our projects at the beginning of the week, capital obligations.
So I just want to clarify a couple things, Don. So a couple quick questions. So one, your contractors submit not only the goal on what they want to do, but the cost on Friday. And then the next Monday, so the weekend goes by, then on Monday, you have a team member who then cuts those checks. Is that right? It's for the next week. And then basically those checks will be then delivered on that next Friday then?
Basically at the end of the week, the end of that week on Friday, contractors will pick those checks up as long as they've hit that goal. They finish that work.
And that's something that I didn't mean to interrupt you, but basically they have to hit that goal before they get that check.
They have to hit that goal. Yeah, and we can talk about some of the implications if they don't. But but essentially, now as a company, we know what our capital obligations are, which is huge for a rehabber. Knowing where you stand financially, cash flow, capital obligations, making sure that you have a healthy company, all that comes into play with knowing where you stand early on in the week. So then we have transparency to our investors early on in the week. We're able to say, this is what we're paying out this week. We're very transparent as to what we're paying out and why. And then they have given us their check, like I said, by Wednesday or Thursday. We got their money in. So now we have capital in our bank account to pay out the contractor. So that system manages cash flow for us. So you notice that one little thing where we're saying you got to do this to the contractor allows us to accomplish so many things in our business. So it's structure, right? This is the rule that you got to follow every single week. And you put those accountabilities in place. And I can go through my whole organization, talk about these systems that we use, that we figured out how to implement that allow our business to run and function properly. So we end up with that one little obligation to the contractor that they have to submit their invoice on Friday. We end up knocking out a bunch of different things.
So other things, come from that. That's awesome.
Come from that. And then by Friday, if they finish the work that they need to complete, they get that check. Now everybody asks me, what if they don't finish? Well, my answer to the back is, if it's somebody we work with, because a lot of our contractors we worked with for 5 or 6 years, we're great at maintaining relationships. If they didn't finish painting the exterior and that was on the invoice, and I know the guy and he's going to have his team there on Saturday to knock that out, I'm probably going to give him a check.
Pay him, right? Yeah, gotcha.
So, but if it's something where they're like 50% complete, we're gonna recut the check for 50% complete. If it's a new person we haven't worked with before, we're gonna recut the check to what they have completed. Now that usually, once we do that, solves the problem of them not making that mistake of over promising and under delivering. Number one,
absolutely.
But it also allows us here, people talk about the issues around in the contractors. That little system allows us to, on Friday, if that guy has been a problem and is not finishing what he's billing us for, I can have him basically cut loose and I can have a new contractor there on Monday.
Can have a new one right in there. Yep.
Right in there, right behind him. I'm only out financially what he has finished his work, what he's done. I've only paid him for what he's done. So I'm not out a bunch of money. So a lot of people do draw schedules, right? And you do them, that's fine. I don't do them, but sometimes you'll do a draw and the contractor, isn't quite ready for that draw. You've done a big deposit and now he's ready for a draw. And a lot of investors make the mistake of being into the contractor too deep. And then the contractor walks, you got to fire him and you're losing 10, 15, 20 grand.
Plus time, right?
Plus time. Mm-hmm. I don't have that issue. It's like, if I see something that's being a problem, it's like Friday comes, forget it, new contractor on Monday. The last time I had to fire a contractor, I was out like $1,500.
That's not terrible at all.
Yeah. You
I
can
mean,
live
it's
with
a
that.
little loss, but yeah, that's nothing. That's not bad.
Yeah. So that's a system. And the reason why I share that, it's the easiest one to share, but it just gives you perspective. You look at your whole organization like that through that lens of, okay, how can we put processes of accountability in place that we do the same every single time? And that becomes a system in your organization.
Right.
I'm sure you have them without even realizing it in wholesaling. When you get a contract, is there a first step when you get a contract? Is there a second step when you get a contract? Is there a process that you follow every time for your organization?
Absolutely. And do you use Podio for your CRM?
We use Podio for our CRM. Absolutely.
Awesome. So we have Podio and GlobalFlow, and we have tons and tons of automations that, you do one thing, it triggers the next thing, and then it triggers the next thing. And it's really, really helpful to put those systems in place and to keep everybody on the team, up to date on where things are at. So absolutely. That's awesome. I love that. So Don, tell me a little bit more about, you guys were getting more into wholesaling. So last year, 2017, 122 deals, approximately 10 wholesales, about 3 wholesales. Are you doing more wholesales now?
Yeah, we're okay. So just to put it in perspective, I set a wild, crazy goal at the beginning of the year to do 200 properties.
200 for 2018.
200 properties for 2018.
Okay.
At the pace we're going, we should cross the 200 mark by the end of September, beginning of October. So
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping now for about 250, 260 by the end of the year. But needless to say, we wouldn't be able to accomplish that number without putting wholesale into the mix. I mean, one of the reasons why we're able to do many properties this year is because we're able to buy. Look, I mean, as rehabbers, there's a box that everything has to fit in. If the numbers don't work, the numbers don't work. You can't overpay for something to rehab it and expect to make money every single time. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, in a fluke, you might get overbid, you might make money, but most of the time you're going to break even or lose if you don't buy right. So what this crazy market is doing right now is there are people who are coming in, institutional buyers, you name it, that are willing to pay, 90 cents on a dollar, 95 cents on a dollar for whatever reason. They're going to hold them. They don't have to make as much. And so we want to take advantage of that. We're in a cycle right now in the market where, I mean, honestly, let's face it, it's hot in a lot of the country.
It's hard to get good deals right now, or harder, I should say. If you know what you're doing, you can always find them, but it's getting harder and harder. Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, it's real easy to get rid of properties, and I want to take advantage of that. So we put some structures and systems in place, some processes in place to allow us to get more contracts. And we're capitalizing on the fact that we have buyers that are willing to buy thin, and so stuff that we normally wouldn't touch, we're selling off. So wholesaling just made sense at this point in time, and so we decided to go that direction, and it's been really well for us. We did 29 contracts in June, and I would say probably 50% of that we're going to wholesale off.
Oh, I love it. So you're going to be doing 100 wholesale deals this year, probably then.
Probably, yeah.
Man, that's awesome. I love it. It's so cool. Well, tell me a little bit about how you guys go about getting your deals, because to me, whenever you weren't doing all these wholesales, and you were doing 100, let's just say last year you did 122 last year. Are you buying most of your properties from wholesalers, or are you guys just doing your own marketing and you have your own department to do that? I would think you'd have to have your own, because you could buy 122 properties in St. Louis from wholesalers, but you're not going to get 50 deals.
Right.
So you know how that goes.
So, okay. So basically, that's a great question. I started in this business dead broke. I will say that I didn't have, 2 quarters rubbed together. I couldn't do marketing. And so I did a lot of networking when I started. And so for a lot of this business, I have been referral based, agents. I'm working with agents who bring me deals. I'm working with wholesalers who bring me deals. We're doing some of our own marketing. We're shaking every bush. But a lot, probably 50% of what we're doing is coming from outside sources. And people, you build the right relationships with agents. They might be good for 2 or 3 or 4 deals a year, but you have 10 of those people you have relationships with. And
that's a ton of deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are getting 50% from your own efforts, though.
But yeah, up until 2018, absolutely 50% from our efforts, and the rest were from outside sources. So I'll be honest with you, to tell you the truth, and this goes because I think there's a battle sometimes between flippers and wholesalers. The wholesalers don't always get what flippers go through, and flippers don't understand. Sometimes the wholesalers spend a lot of time spinning their wheels and money marketing just to get the deal. And so
they're both hard. And in fact, you're doing both of them is amazing.
Yeah, they're both hard.
I do a little bit of flipping, but mostly wholesaling.
They're both hard. And I want to acknowledge that before I say what I'm going to say, because what happened was a wholesaler in my market made me mad. I did a lot of business with them, and it's not wholesalers in general. Like I said, I'm acknowledging wholesaling is tough. It's a hard business. You guys bring a lot of value. This guy had kind of done the, okay, you get the contract on this, and then I didn't hear from him, and I gave that to somebody else kind of thing on me. Mm-hmm. And so going into 2018, that was one reason, but I decided I was going to drop a bomb on the market and take the air out of the market.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. That's sweet.
Because it made me mad. But also, the cost of marketing was getting so expensive. We were pushing, $6,000 a deal through direct mail, and some of the other sources were climbing as well.
Man, and I looked at that's your KPI for one deal, basically, was
for one deal in 2018. Yeah. So, and I looked at my organization. Everybody's saying, direct mail's dead. This marketing's dead. That marketing's dead. And I looked at my organization. I said, well, what if it's not dead, but people are on the wrong seats? What if everybody just got comfortable? I've had these people in these positions for a while. We've been doing this the way we've been doing this for however many years.
Right.
What if they just got comfortable and I need to kind of shake some things up? So our process, we brought, originally we'd do marketing. The call would come in. Our acquisitions guy would answer the call. He'd set the appointment. He'd go out on the appointment. He'd close the deal. That was our process. I felt like we were losing something in follow-up. I felt like we were losing something in that process that didn't allow us to capitalize on every deal. So one of my acquisitions guy who was great at acquisitions, but I just felt he'd be better in dispositions. I moved to dispositions. Another acquisitions guy, I just pulled him out of that role. He went and did something else for the company. And then I brought in 3 lead managers to answer the phone. I brought in 3 because I was thinking maybe 2 would stick, right? But anyway, all are great. I brought in 3 lead managers to answer the phone. Over the next couple of months, January, February, March, I hired 3 more acquisitions people, and basically turned the marketing on. I turned on direct mail, turned on the process, implemented systems and processes to follow up. And it took a little while to start to ramp up. But once it kind of hit and everybody kind of got their stride, I basically threw it against the wall. I was like, where are the cracks? We'll fix the cracks as we go. Right.
Right.
I hired all these people kind of at once.
Right.
So, as it started to ramp up and everybody kind of got their feet under and we started kind of falling in the roles and the communication, it just really opened my eyes because the fresh blood and the fresh life and putting my acquisitions guy in dispositions where he really belonged and being in the right seat. A lot of people talk about the right seat. Just really opened the door to so many opportunities for our organization. And again, having him in the right seat, like giving us permission to lock up properties that we normally wouldn't touch was huge.
Right.
And, we just, the number started to climb. Like I said, in June, we did 29 contracts. We're probably going to hit about 30 contracts for July. My goal was 40, but, July 4th fell in there. Right. So we're going to shoot for 40 in August. It's starting to we're getting so many leads coming in right now, so many good leads. We have another acquisitions person starting next week in our main market. I've already entered 2 new markets. And we got our first contract in one of them actually yesterday. We have a 6-figure wholesale, another one.
Ooh, love those.
Yeah.
Done a couple of those. Those are fun.
Yeah, those are huge. So, and just looking at things through a different lens, I guess, right? And I put it together, and it's working. And I will say, you cut me off anytime you have a question, but I will say that they are 2 different businesses. Like wholesaling and rehabbing are 2 different businesses. You buy differently, you analyze properties differently, you think differently.
Right. And you do. You really do. You have to.
Mm-hmm. And my struggle going into wholesale as rehabber, for those of you rehabbers who are listening to this, was, well, what happens if they have an easy way out? They have a buyer at 90 and the seller won't go below 80 in this conversation. Do they take the easy way out, or they do what we used to do, which is you work on that seller until you get them down where you need them to be?
Right.
And so I'm trying to find that balance still, but I'm not complaining because we're moving a lot of property.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's awesome. So a couple things. So you said your key, your KPIs are about $6,000 per deal, and
in 2018.
In 2018. So I love that you added the date in there, and that's really what I wanted to get at. And the reason is because
2007. I apologize. 2017.
17.
Anyway. Yeah,
right. But the reason that it's so high is because you don't have that. Those people aren't necessarily in the funnel from before. They're being added into the funnel now. And on average in St. Louis, we probably work a lead for 6 to 8 months on average before we can get them down to where we need them to be to get that deal done. So as time goes on and that funnel gets larger, the cost of those deals and or leads will actually get smaller and smaller. It'll diminish to a certain point because it's not a deal today, but it might be a deal in 6 months, so on and so forth. So just a kind of a good lesson out there for all listeners and viewers. The cost per lead or per deal is going to be higher in the beginning, but the more and more you do it, the cheaper it's going to become, which is awesome.
Well, I agree 100%. And one of the reasons I think we were so high in 2017 is because we weren't really as good on follow-up as we wanted to be.
That's 80% of the business in wholesale. Yeah. It is. Marketing's 20, 79 follow-up, 1% closing.
So
follow-up.
We implemented follow-up hard. Our lead managers, if they're not taking calls, they're making calls. And we have our acquisitions people on follow-up like crazy too. And our cost per lead not per lead, but for closed contract went from just under $6,000 a deal. We're down to $1,800 a closed contract now. In 2018. Part of that is making sure that we're marketing right. Like we figured out how to track our lists and how we're doing it I'm micro tracking. I'm taking 100% and breaking it on its own. I'm taking, 70 to 90% breaking it on its own. And I'm figuring out okay, this list produces a contract in 30 calls, but only gets 0.5% response rate. This one gets 0.8% response rate, produces
Are you doing all that in Podio?
45 calls. I'm doing that outside of Podio.
Okay. I was going to say, that's a lot.
That's a lot. But I'm breaking it down and the other thing I'm figuring out is this is a mistake a lot of people make. And I'm kind of excited about this. It's kind of nerdy, but I mailed to a list at the end of January that produced calls and appointments, but no contracts. Okay. And so that was in January. And then I had a handful of lists that I mailed to that produced calls, appointments, and contracts. And I thought, okay, list number one's a dud. And these two lists are all I'm going to mail to. Not two, but there's actually a few more I mailed to. But these are all I'm going to mail to. And so I did the math and I was like, okay, at that time, I think it was in March, I'm almost $60,000 in direct mail and $28,000 of it produced and the other 32 didn't produce. So if I just saved, by not mailing to that 32,000, this would actually cut my cost per lead down even further, right? My cost per contract even further. That's the nerdy part of it. So I decided I wasn't going to mail to that list, but we're going to stay maintaining it with follow-up. In May and June, 50% of the contracts that I got came from the list that produced nothing on the front end.
Absolutely, because the follow-up.
It's the follow-up. So the point is, now I'm mailing to it again, obviously, and I know it's a high-hanging fruit list. You got to have your high-hanging, low-hanging fruit list, right? So, but I think the mistake that a lot of new people make is they'll mail to something, they won't get results, and they'll think it doesn't work.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
that's what I tell all of my students as well. And all the listeners and viewers out there, I love sharing information. I know you do too. Your podcast is awesome. It rocks. But absolutely. And that's the thing. As you have those people in the follow-up, or as you start mailing them, they're going to start calling and they may not get appointments right away, but after time you will. And after you do a couple of appointments on those, you'll get people down and it just goes down. Absolutely. Every way.
It starts to stack on itself, and pretty soon you're looking at a month and going, I never even believed I could do that many contracts in a month. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's services out there that can do bulk skip tracing too. I'm sure you guys are doing that. So we skip trace, we use two really cheap services. We use whitepages.com actually, and then we use one called Intellis. It's very similar to Spokio. People have heard of that one as well. And those ones are like basically $20-$30 a month. We just subscribe to them and we use them and they work really, really well. If all else fails and or we want to search a business, we use TLO. It's $1 a search. It can add up quick if you're doing several hundred of these things, but we use it a couple times a day. So the bill's not too crazy. But we skip trace them all. But even that is time consuming. So typically before we even do any of that, we send our lists off to a bulk skip tracing company and they'll provide us back with some of the information. Now that information is not always right. Hence the fact that we have, answer our other things to use to go find those names and addresses and phone numbers and all that other good stuff. So I'm sure you guys are doing the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, bulk skip tracing suite. And, there's a lot of people recently. I feel like it's mostly been a little bit of 2017, but mostly 2018 where you get a lot of people on podcasts and blogs and and just out there in the space, Facebook, talking about, TTP, just talk to people.
Mhm.
And that's what they're doing recently. Now they're still mailing, but I know people out there now. There's guys in my marketplace that actually have quit mailing altogether. They purchase their lists, they do the bulk skip trace, and they just call the people up. And there's a lot more time involved, but it's a lot more cost effective, because if they make one phone call to somebody and that individual says, "I just bought the house, I'm not selling to you, quit calling me," well, they're probably not going to want to follow up with that person very often, if ever. Versus the old guy that's not ready to sell today, but he's getting old and he knows that he's going to need to sell soon, so call him back in 6 months to a year. Those are the people that you want to get. And by doing that, you're not having to mail them at second, third, fifth, seventh, sometimes even 10th time, right off the bat. Hey, this is a lead not worth spending any more time and money on, so it can help bring that cost down, which is awesome. So love that you're doing that. Let's jump back into your business and the 250 deals you should do this year. Of those, do you have a good estimate of what will be rehab, wholesale?
Yeah, 50 to 60% of that is going to be rehab. We're more cherry picking our rehabs now. Our average profit on rehabs has been about 50 grand. Which is pretty decent in our market. We're in California, but we're not in the $1 million home markets. Our median house value is around 250. So, we're averaging about 50 grand on our rehab profits, which is really, really good.
No, that's the ARV. It's the after sale price or after.
No, 50 grand
price.
profit.
I get that, but the 250.
Oh yeah, that's the median. Yeah, that's the first time buyer, second time buyer price point is between like 125 to 250.
I want to pause just for 1 second. So we had mentioned that. Oh great, my Alexa's talking to me here. No thanks. But anyway, we are. You're in Fresno. I'm in St. Louis. So St.
Right.
Louis has got about 2.8 million people in our market, and that includes basically like the surrounding counties, like the metro area. And I'm looking up on Wikipedia here now. It looks like you guys have a population for the city of about 494. So 500,000 people. And then the metro area about 972. So probably 1 million. In the state, it could be a little old. Is that about right?
That's about right.
About 500,000 and 1 million. And then I'm on Google Maps here. And I've been to Fresno for about half an hour. I drove through. I think I stopped and had a sandwich. This is many, many years ago. So are you doing most of your business in Fresno? Or are you guys going down to, I'm going to say this wrong, Vasilla? And
Visalia.
Okay, and Merced, is how you say that one? MERCED?
Mm-hmm.
Merced. Are you doing business up there too, or is it just Fresno?
No, so basically our core radius is about an hour, which is Merced to Visalia, Tulare, Hanford. So we do kind of an hour radius is where the majority of those 29 contracts came from. For last month. We go actually all the way up to about Modesto right now.
Okay. Yep.
We've done some stuff up in Sacramento, as far as Sacramento, a couple, in the last couple of years.
That's a good drive.
Yeah. So this year we're concentrated on Modesto down to about Visalia, Tulare. And then I'm actually in 6 cities in the Bay Area right now. That's where our one of our six-figure transactions is coming from.
Okay.
And we've entered Orange County, California. That's where we got our first contract from yesterday. We just entered into Orange County, and I have in a couple other cities. I have some strategic partnerships. We won't get into that right now, but I'm actually in another city in California and in another state. So I figured out the system, the structure of how to handle an inbound lead and the whole seller experience through our organization. Seller experience is huge. That's why, McDonald's and every fast food restaurant, whether they're good at it or not, tries to create a customer experience. Well, your seller is your customer, right? So, we have this process of driving them through, and now I'm just kind of duplicating that. So
I love it, man. I was going to say, because I feel like it's, there's a couple other big guys in my market. I would consider myself to be one of them, or my company to be one of them. But off the top of my head, I can think of 1, 2, 3, 4 other companies, really 3 companies and 1 guy, but he's got his own company. It's just small, but that are each also doing anywhere from 50 to 100 deals minimum on the wholesale side.
Right.
And I am doing that. I'm doing over 100 on my company is as well. So it's, and we're 3 times the size of the market as you guys are. That's why I'm asking, just to give out listeners and viewers understanding. So, you guys are 1/3 the size. I'm sure you have other people in the market that are doing big deals as well. Maybe not as many rehabs, but definitely wholesaling. So you kind of have to branch out into other areas. But once you have the systems in place, it doesn't make it that difficult to do so.
Right, and I will say we have competition. Every market's competitive. Our market is competitive like any other. We have big fish in our market. It's a small pond. We have big fish in a small pond, and the 29 we did last month. We're in our main market. I mean, they were Madera to Visalia mostly. I think we did 1 or 2 in Merced. So it can be done. And one of the reasons why I went into some of these hyper competitive markets like Orange County in the Bay Area is because everybody was telling me you couldn't do it. Like, this marketing channel doesn't work in this market because it's X, and I was like, I'm gonna prove that I can figure it out. You watch your KPIs, you track properly, you test properly, test your marketing, because what Dave does in St. Louis isn't going to work in Fresno necessarily. It may or may not. And what I do in Fresno isn't going to work there in New York or wherever else. So
yeah, each market's so different too, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So you take our advice for your foundation, and then you test the variations that work best in your market. And I wanted to prove that theory. And like I said, I've got basically, a couple of 6-figure, wholesale assignment fees coming from outside markets that people told me that I wasn't going to be able to do a deal in. So, and I'm going to prove that I can do multiple deals in those markets. So,
I love it. That's sweet. So let me ask you this, Don. I've pivoted. We're still doing direct mail here in St. Louis. However, I've really slowed down my direct mail, and I've really ramped up my marketing for all the online space. So at this point, we're doing Facebook, we're doing AdWords, we're doing some Bing. I haven't broken into YouTube quite yet, but Facebook, AdWords, and Bing we're getting the majority of our deals from that. Now we still do some direct mail, we still do bandit signs as well, and then of course networking. Network marketing, stuff along the lines of, going to RIAs and getting deals, having agents bring us those pocket listings, or even those listings that aren't selling, so on and so forth. Are you doing most of that same stuff in your market too?
I was, to a certain degree. I was shaking every bush. When I rebooted my operation, I basically decided that through the process, and when like you asked me about systems in the beginning, I'm building my systems for the operation, how it looks today. And so we're having a meeting every single Tuesday going, okay, what's working, what's not, how do we better do this, how do we better do that as we build those systems. And in order for me to do that, I was like, we're going to master one marketing channel through this process. And so direct mail was that marketing channel. So we're at the point now where I'm going to be turning back on PPC this month. I have some SEO stuff that's been in the work for the last handful of months. And so we're adding back other marketing channels. But to tell you the truth, everything I've done, and what I love about direct mail being dead means everybody else is getting out of my way.
Right. Everyone, people either slowing down or they're stopping. Right. But guys like you're the pioneer, man. I love it. It's awesome.
So I've spent, including this month to date, I've spent about $134,000 on direct mail. I'm really good at finding discounts. That equals a little over 500,000 mail pieces that have been sent out. And just to preface that, that's not, I'm not in a big enough city to send out that many, hundreds of thousands in one shot. I've already hit some of my lists 3 or 4 times in that 500,000. Right. So, and I'm in multiple markets. So I've spent about $134,000. We booked, I think we're pushing $2 million in either realized or potential profits on the books from deals on the books already. So, I mean, you're looking at, for every dollar I spend, I'm getting probably somewhere between $12 and $13 back, so from direct mail. And that's a really, really good ratio.
That's a really good ratio. Absolutely.
So, but that's because I did the work. I was disciplined. I figured it out. I'm watching my numbers. I'm tracking. I'm paying attention, and I'm tweaking things as I need to tweak things. So, and I'm being really, really aggressive. I learned. I think a big lesson at the beginning of the year that sometimes when you're timid and you stick your toe in, you're just throwing money away.
You really are.
Yeah. You need to go big or go home, and you don't have to go as big as I went, but you need to be serious about what you're doing. Otherwise, you might as well just, throw money away, light it on fire, do something else with it. So
yeah, I have a couple students right now. I'm sure you do as well, but a couple of my students that I have right now, the main barrier that I'm trying to get them to break through is, like you said, you gotta go big or go home. Now, you don't have to necessarily be spending $100,000 by any means, but I tell my students you need to have about $1,000 minimum a month to be putting into a direct mail campaign minimum. And I'll have students that'll send me like screenshots of receipts for like $150, $200. And I tell them, hey, you know, I'm glad that you're trying, and I'm glad that you're getting into this space and that you are doing marketing, because at the end of the day, a wholesaler is worthless without marketing to the world. This is what they do, and that they're looking to buy something. But you know, you're absolutely right. I'm agreeing with you 100%. You have to have a good size list and be consistent when it comes to mailing that list, or else your efforts are going to be wasted.
No, yeah, and I agree. And for those, you know, I always say, because people come to me and say, I only have $1,000 or I only have $1,500 I can spend each month. Driving for dollars, you know, building out a niche list, maybe from tax defaults or code enforcement, or getting on list source and really filtering down your list, you know, to a manageable number that you can hit every single month for the next 12 months. Yep. That's what you need to do.
So you tell people hit it basically once a month for 12 months, or 12 times?
12 times, or you know, if you can't afford to do that, hit it every 8 weeks, but just make sure that it's, don't like go out and buy a big list and hit it
mail
once.
One time. Absolutely. Yeah. I say 4 to 6 minimum,
right?
Which is a spread of 2 numbers, obviously, but that's the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I'd like you to do it 7 to 10 times, and 12 even better.
Mm-hmm.
The more the better.
So find that list that you can afford to mail to every single month, because really it doesn't matter. Facebook, cold calling, PPC, it's a consistency game. It really comes down to, there isn't some magic piece or process. It comes down to, is the person ready to see the message when the message appears?
Right. And then the message is going to be appearing 12 times in your case. So you're hopefully going to get it in front of them when they need it.
Right.
Right.
And so that's the key to doing that. And I think a lot of people really, they misunderstand that, you know. And then the other thing, you know, when you talk about like PPC, let's just PPC as an example, marketing is like a hockey stick. If you're here, you're throwing money away. If you get serious about it, then you're competing, you're going to be more consistent, and you're going to be successful. So when you're looking at marketing channels, in some markets, PPC, you might need to be at 10 grand a month before you're not throwing money away. In some markets, it might be 2, depending on the size of the market. Look at the marketing channel that you can afford to be consistent in. And don't feel like you have to do what Dave is doing or what I'm doing or somebody else is doing. Find that channel you can be consistent in. Master that channel. Master your consistency. And once your money starts coming in, then turn on the next channel.
Turn on the next one, the next one. Absolutely.
Right. That's
I love that. I love that. And that's what I tell my students as well, too. Don't try to get out and do 10 bandit signs a week and mail this, this list here, and then do this and do that. You know, focus on 1 or 2 things, typically one thing, and master it. Then you can move on to the next thing, and, you know, don't stop it once you mastered it. Keep it going. But at that point, you know how to do it, what you're doing, so on and so forth. So then you start the next one and the next one, and so on and so forth. So, you know, one thing I have noticed, and we just kind of turned our AdWords, Facebook, being all that stuff on just a couple months ago, like at least got it up to a level to where it's substantial. We're probably spending $7,000-8,000 on Facebook being in AdWords. And then we typically spend anywhere between 3 and 5 on mail. And then there's other things that we're spending. So, you know, our costs are sometimes as high as $15,000 a month, but it kind of varies. But for the most part, the leads that you pay the most for typically seem to become the most profitable leads down the road. I'm still working on my KPIs for if there's more appointments that way, or so on and so forth. But I can tell you this, if I'm paying $30 or $40 for that lead, you know, per one click, for example, and then I may only get a certain number of clicks to get somebody to actually fill out the form. And then obviously that's a lead that comes through, but then there may have to be 10, 20, 30 leads that come through before I can get, you know, an appointment and a close, and so on and so forth. But the more money I spend on my marketing per thing, it seems to profit higher. Do you feel that way in your market too, or does it, or not yet?
You know, the more I take my marketing seriously, you know, I don't know if I could say that I've looked at it like that as far as like maybe the lead, the more I spend on the lead, but definitely the more I take the marketing seriously and the more consistent I am with the spend. You know, I went from this month, I'm already at about $34,000 in ad spend. And because I'm in multiple markets, I'm going to be sending out almost 200,000 postcards this month because I've opened up a few more markets. Wow. So by the end of the month, I'll probably be somewhere between 45 and 50,000, maybe, roughly, in direct mail. So, and it seems like the more I take it seriously and the more I pour fuel on the fire, the more profitable, the more consistent things become. So, yeah, I will say that definitely.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're just a behemoth. You're crushing the game. I love it.
I'm trying to be. Yeah, I mean,
you are absolutely
So,
awesome. I love it, man. Well, the systems, in my business, I'm really recently, and actually over the next few months, that's kind of my number one goal is to help my company by implementing more and more systems into place so we can scale not only our marketing, but the number of wholesales that we're doing, and also increase the number of rentals that my company holds and rehab. So right now we're doing maybe we're trying to add 2 or 3 rentals a month and trying to sell 2 flips a month. But I would love to double those numbers over the next, 4 to 6 months, maybe sooner even. So by putting those systems in place will definitely help us. And the fact that you guys are doing 250 deals, or that's probably where you'll be at the end of 2018, it's just mind-boggling to me. I love it. 50-60% rehabs, and then the rest will be a mix of wholesales and wholesales. It's awesome. But there's no possible way that myself, my company, or you and your company could even get to a fraction of those numbers without having these systems in place. Wouldn't you agree?
I do, but let me tell you the secret to systems. People.
Absolutely.
You got to have the right people. If you don't have the right team, it doesn't matter what your system is. The foundation of systems, the first system you put in place is the people and how you hire the people. And if you're not hiring the person, a lot of people try to hire the experience, right? If you're not hiring the person, somebody teachable and coachable, somebody loyal and hardworking, somebody's going to get behind your company and love it the way you do. If you're not hiring the right people, it doesn't matter what system you have in place. I wouldn't be able to do. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do any of what I do, have any of the systems in place if it wasn't for the team. I have literally not been in my office for 4 days basically Wednesday through Sunday. So it was at 5 days out of every week for the last 6 weeks. In other words, I've been in Monday and Tuesday only for the last 6 weeks. And again, we put 29 houses in contract last month. So
wow, that's sweet.
But that's because I have great people in place. I've been able to go camping, go to my son's water polo tournaments. I just spent the weekend this weekend at Mastermind. I've been able to do all these things and have my come back and have my company still running better than it was when I left it. And that's because of people. And so that is your first obligation to yourself, is to start building a team with the right people.
Man, that's the best piece of advice I've heard in a long time. I love that. That is awesome. But you're absolutely right. You got to have good people in place, because the systems are worthless if the people won't follow them. And like you said, they need to be coachable, and they need to have have the same goal in their head as you do as the owner of the business if they're working in the business. So Don, I love that, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything else that Don that you want to talk about? I definitely want you to talk a little bit about your podcast. Don has his own podcast. It's called Flip Talk. It's an awesome podcast. If you haven't listened to that yet, check it out. iTunes and Stitcher, just like ours. Don, you do a coaching program too, don't you?
I don't actually. I don't have a coaching program. No, I don't. I
thought you were doing that.
No, not. I do live events every once in a while.
Okay.
And
well, that's
so
cool.
yeah, I do like some 2-day events and stuff like that. So, you're the guy for them to go to if they need coaching.
Well, I wanted to bring it up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get more information about your events, because I'd love to get out there and check out one of the events. And if you're doing it in your area, I'd love to just get out to California for a couple of days too.
Absolutely. So I'll definitely let you know when we do the next one. So, but yeah, I have the podcast. I love doing it. We have the Rookie Playbook series that we've been doing, which is Mondays. It gets released on Mondays, and we started in week 1. You know nothing about real estate. What do you do first? And I think we're like week 20 something, and now we're into kind of teams, building the team. What does my team look like? That kind of thing. And we're going to go through a year of that. And that's actually
podcast, or is that part of the Flip Talk?
That's part of the Flip Talk podcast.
Okay.
And then of course we have the Wednesdays where we do the interviews, which I'm looking forward to interviewing you on mine. And, just talking to high level people like you do and just dropping some great content. And then every once in a while on Fridays, we'll release a roundtable where we just have kind of high level discussions about what we're doing in our businesses. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's super cool.
So we take it very seriously. I love doing it. I love because I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for the fact that I was out there doing the podcast.
Absolutely.
So it's been a lot. They're a lot of work. I'm not going to lie doing podcasts, but it's been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, we have fun doing it too. But I'm sure you have a system in place for that too, like we do. We have a virtual assistant that takes the video and sends it off to a transcription company. And then that comes back. We have another virtual assistant that goes in, does the editing for us, adds in the intro and the outro, and then that comes back. And it's all flows. It's all processes in Podio. You build it out once. So it is a lot of work in the beginning, and it's a lot of work for other people. But, once you get those systems built, back to the topic of this show, it comes back and it makes it easy. It's awesome.
I agree 100%.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, Don, thanks for coming on the show today. It looks like we're about roughly 45 minutes in. It's a good time. Again, thanks so much for coming on the show. Tons of value. The best system you can have, my favorite quote of the show, the best system you can have is your people. That's perfect. I love it, man. Very cool. Well, Don, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for coming on the show. Again, guys, if you haven't checked out freewholesalecourse.com, check it out. It's a great way to get started wholesaling properties. And until next time, we will see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. To jumpstart your real estate investing career, please visit freewholesalecourse.com, the most complete free course on wholesaling real estate ever. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thank you in advance for your support, and remember, you make your money when you buy, and you get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.